slideshow and get started.
Kate, I just started recording, just so you know.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So I called it the magic of time management, and really there's no magic to it. It's a lot of work, but the magic kind of really comes in when if we can manage our time well, and that is the if, right? And when we do manage our time well, we actually almost magically get more time, right? So it can be somewhat magical in that way. Let's see. Two thoughts that I want to keep in mind as we're doing this is that it takes time to learn how to use time. There's a reason why we're talking about time management, and there's a reason why there's so many resources and ideas and thoughts out there, and self-help books on managing time, because it actually is some work and it takes time to learn. And then the principles of time use are really just guidelines that we're going to go through. So three kind of questions that I'm going to ask, or we're going to answer today, is we're going to first look at, where does my time go, right? We're going to do a little analysis of that, because if we can figure out how we use our time, and then kind of go to where should my time go, we can then answer the third question about how can I use my time better. So where does my time go? I loved this quote of, the bad news is that time flies. The good news is that you are the pilot. You actually do have control over your time. So analyzing our time usage is going to help us to be able to use time better. It's kind of, we back up and go slow to move forward. So I'm going to ask you to think of your last week, or the last day or two. I know it's only Tuesday, midday, but think about these days and what did you do during your time? What were your goals? What percentage of your goals did you accomplish? And then what got in the way? Kind of what distracted you from possibly really getting to the goals that you had thought you would set out for yourself? We're going to get into breakout rooms, and I know these are a separate set of questions, but they're very similar really as you're thinking through this. So I want you to, in the breakout room, share with your colleagues how clear were your goals that you did set, whether you were thinking of last week, whether you were thinking of today or last couple days. What did you do to ensure that your goals were accomplished? What were your biggest distractions? And then how would your life be different if you had those distractions under control? If you weren't distracted by anything and actually just could focus on your goals, how would your life be? So I'm gonna ask Kathy to put us into breakout rooms for maybe 6 minutes. So it's 1:08 now. Maybe we'll come back at about 1:14.
Kate, I don't think I have breakout capacity on this setting.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry to say that.
No problem. Interestingly, let me stop sharing.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, we're back. Okay, well, now Kate, we're going to go into breakout rooms.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, just so you guys all know, every time there's a Zoom update, it moves.
Yeah, things change, and I actually updated right before this.
I know.
Fun. So I'll put the questions in the chat, but again, be thinking about how clear were your goals that you had set? What did you do to ensure that you reached them? What got in the way? What were your distractions? And then really, what would life be like if, or how different would it be if you didn't have those distractions? And just chat with your colleagues. We'll do it till about, how about 1:15? Send you off. Matt, can you hear me?
I can.
I put you in a breakout room. Do you see that?
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Sorry, we just went in. I put the questions in the chat.
Okay, I will look for them. Do I? Okay,
Do you see it or no? Or do you want me to do it again?
well, I see them, but I don't see them. So,
Or do you, hold on, let me move you to a different room. Let's do this. Did you get a invite for a breakout room?
no, I have not.
Okay, and Beth, you're here too.
Here I am.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I
Um,
joined late. I was like, oh, balls. Look what time it is.
Me
I don't
too.
know. Yeah, that's okay. I don't know how the breakout rooms work when you join after, but basically what we were just talking about was when, like, if you think about your goals that you may have set for the last few days or last week, as far as getting things done, like thinking about how clear they were, what did you do to accomplish them, what were your biggest distractions in getting them done, and then really kind of how would life be different if you had all your distractions like under control. Right? Woohoo!
That's very theoretical, right?
Very lofty. I'd say that's lofty. Is what I'd
Especially
say.
these days. Especially these days. Although I don't know, the office may not be any better than home, so I don't know. You
Actually,
know?
it is. I don't know about you, Matt, but yesterday I got to go to the office, and I didn't go at all last week, but I went the week before. And I find it's a relief for me to be there because, like, it's a semblance of normal for me. Like right
Yeah.
now, my daughter being home all the time and me being home and my husband being home, that's not normal. Like I go to work, my daughter goes to school, like she does stuff after school, like I go pick her up at 5:30 and I'm like, hey. So I love going to the office because I get a break from the stress of work and mom and wife all wrapped into one in my house, like
24/7.
24/7. Yeah.
Hold on, you guys. I'm just gonna let you know I'm gonna close the room so they'll have a minute to come back. So just so you know, we can still chat, but they might start coming back in.
Yeah, I think that the adjustment for me being at home, all my kids are grown up. My youngest is going to be 18 in just a few months.
What?
I know, right?
Dang, Matt, we've known each other for a long time.
Long time, yeah. So they're fully self-sufficient, and I never see them. They're just around doing their thing, and they're pretty quiet for the most part. But the time management piece is hard because I don't have to factor travel time in. I get in this habit of planning meetings back to back to back to back. And oftentimes, if you have travel time, that's when you're like coordinating and organizing and making sure that phone call follow-up to the previous meeting is done before the next meeting. And that's where I'm tripping up, is those next steps pile up throughout the day, and I'm not building in time necessarily to knock them off because I'm not factoring in. I had that natural sort of build in when I was in the office. Yeah.
Nice. It was good to see you, Matt.
Hi, Krista.
Where did I get?
Hey, welcome back. One of the things, interestingly, and we had a little group going with Beth and Matt and I was, this is factored. I mean, certainly it's going to be part of your conversation, but the idea that life is very different right now, right? Kind of the distractions that we have at home may be very different than the distractions that we have in the office. So what we're finding right now may not be in a couple of months, where maybe we're finding more peace now. And when we're in the office, we find less, right? It really depends on our situation. But things are a little bit different right now than the norm. Anyone have any good like aha Man, I'm killing this. Thoughts? Do you want
I
to
was
share?
killing it until today.
Wow, I'm pretty impressed though. That's really good.
I don't know if I have a killing it, but I did have a aha moment, and it was sort of comforting to know that I'm not the only one that doesn't set goals. Because that's where my problem starts. I don't set goals.
Are
I
you
just
up now, Carolina?
I just opened my email, and that's where my goal starts. What is first on the list, kind of.
Cool. And that's a great way. That is a good place to start, right? And that's a great way to start thinking about how is that working for you, and is there a way that you would want to manage that? And we'll get into some of those. And maybe it is working. I'm going to pull up my the PowerPoint again. Thank you for doing that. Let's see. Some other questions that I'm going to bring up, and again, as you are, what are the things about managing our time is that we really need to know what we're doing now and what works and what isn't working before we can actually move forward to make a plan to manage it, right? So some other questions to be thinking about is what major activities did I engage in, right? How important were they? Like say if we're just looking at this past week and we're kind of gauging and analyzing and assessing how we're using our time. When did I start my top priority, right? And could I have started sooner? Or did I start at a perfect time? What was the longest uninterrupted period of my day? And that's about concentration, right? So if we are able to sit in an uninterrupted period in the day, we know that that's a good time to work. What period of the day was I most productive? Was I least productive? We have different times in our cycles, right? That we are more productive and less. A lot of times people are more productive kind of mid-morning, earlier in the morning. But some people are night owls too. And sometimes people are more productive late. So know what works for you. What was the most common source of interruption? Right? And what were the causes of those interruptions, and what do I have control over? On what items did I spend too much time or too little time? And what items could someone else have handled, right? What items could I have delegated and not had to do myself, but I put time into? So as we kind of move forward and looking at like prioritizing our time and how best to use our time, these are questions that will give you information, and information can just help guide us to how we want to move forward and plan how we're going to manage our time. So where should my time go? Really, when we're talking about prioritizing time and time management, it's more than just about managing our time, right? It's about managing ourselves in relation to time. And it means being willing to experiment with different methods and ideas to enable us to find the best way to make maximum use of our time, is really what we're talking about when we're doing this. And there's kind of this idea put out there that if we don't manage our time, someone else is going to do it for us, right? And not maybe inadvertently, but someone will take our time. So the more we take control over it and kind of have that very healthy relationship with time, the better off we're going to be. 3 things we're just going to look at in prioritizing time is the 80-20 rule, the urgent important matrix, and then the being assertive at, I'm going to call it say no, right? And we'll talk a little more about that. So the 80-20 rule, I'm sure you've heard of, is also known as the Pareto rule or the Pareto principle. And it comes from originally an Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, I guess it's Pareto. I didn't know it because I liked the little jingle of the name. And he actually was looking back in the 1800s at Italy and noticed that 80% of the wealth was owned by 20% of the population. And he started looking as an economist at other areas and saw this 80-20 rule seem to happen a lot. And then since then, there's actually been a lot of research done on the 80-20 rule in many facets of life. But what we found is that 80% of the results that we get in a day for a goal come from 20% of our actions. And so the idea, like say you take your top 10, your to-do list, top 10 things to do. If you pick the first one to do that has the most impact, the most positive impact on what you need to get done, and complete that task, and then go to the second kind of most important task and complete that task. Those two tasks being completed will get bigger results and better results than the other 8 things on the to-do list combined. It's kind of the idea of this. So it's really about thinking, where do I spend my time, and how do I want to spend my time to get the results that I need? It's kind of picking and choosing what actions we take to get the best results. The urgent important matrix, also kind of known as the Eisenhower matrix, because he kind of coined this term, and then Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, ran with this also. The idea is to look at and identify what are we spending our time on, and being able to figure out what are the important things that we want to spend our time on, even above really the urgent things. The important things are activities that are lead us to achieving our goal, right, and have the greatest impact on us, the most important, and oftentimes those are longer term goals. And the urgent activities really demand our attention right off. And sometimes those are geared towards other people's goals, but they need to be dealt with right off. I am going to show, I have a 3-minute little video on this. And again, I have to get out of my PowerPoint to get to this. But I want to show this on, it's on the urgent important matrix and kind of describes it maybe better than I can. So let's see.
Of things to do, but you're feeling overwhelmed and don't know where to start? Then this video will show you a simple way to prioritize your tasks in the right order so you can be more productive and have time for the things that matters in your life. There are 2 factors that define what we do: urgent and important. They both have different characters. Urgent means that it requires your attention right now and has immediate consequences. Important is anything that helps us achieve our long-term goals and values. These are the things that will have a big impact on our lives. However, since they do not have a clear deadline and the consequences of not doing them doesn't appear right away, it's easier to tell yourself you'll do it later, but then later becomes never. The first step is to write a list of all the things you need to get done. The next step is to put each task on your list into one of the following categories. This is called an Eisenhower matrix. Stephen Covey also wrote about this process in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and this method helps you to quickly identify the activities that you should focus on when you're under time pressure, and it keeps you on track with your long-term goals. The first box is for things that are important and urgent. These are project deadlines, medical emergencies, and problems. The strategy is to do it first and do it now. The second box is about what's important and not urgent, such as your health, relationships, and dreams. It's about preventing and planning for the future. The action.
Sorry, I'm just getting the messages that you can't see this. I'm so sorry.
You could hear her. We just couldn't see it.
No. I'm going to try one more thing and then maybe let it go. Can you see that? Okay.
Action step is to schedule it and decide when to do it as soon as possible. The third box has urgent and not important activities. These are interruptions, random phone calls, texts, unimportant emails you get, and they often involve the priorities of other people. The strategy is to reschedule or delegate by asking someone else to do it. The fourth box is not urgent and not important. It's watching TV, checking social media, and other time wasters. Even if they're tempting because they require less effort, decide to do it later or avoid it completely. Let me ask you a question. Do you act or react? In order to act, you need to 100% know what's important, what results you're aiming for. If you don't have that, you will get into a reactive mode where you let the urgent, unimportant things direct your actions and thoughts. Once you know your priorities, organize your life around them. Your actions reflect your priorities. And in order to say yes to them, you have to be willing to say no to something else. We all have 24 hours. You always have time to do what you believe is important. It's about respecting your time, and setting your priorities right is a great way to start. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.
All right. Any thoughts or questions on that? Have you all seen that matrix? I know some groups have done, some teams have used it to kind of look through the tasks in a day or a week or a case and identify what is urgent and important and that you just need to take care of quickly, and then what's important but not urgent that you really do want to focus your time, right? And then the others, what can you delegate, and then what can you just not do? And really just helps you to prioritize and think through what you want to do. And just a quick thing on the to-do list, because I like to-do lists are great. And I like the idea, which said do the to-do list and then put it in whether it's urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, or not urgent and not important. The big myth of the to-do list, unfortunately, is that we kind of think if we put it down in a to-do list, it'll get done. But we need to make sure that we're actually putting the to-do list and then actually doing that, right? Maybe putting it in our calendar, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and getting it done, not just writing the list. And then if we find maybe after like 3 days, we've moved something day after day after day because we're not getting to it, determine at that point, is this really something that needs to get done, right? Is this important or not? It obviously isn't urgent if it's something that goes day after day after day. So figure out what you need to do to get it done, or take it off the list. Okay, that's my little thing on to-do lists. And then just that last piece on prioritizing is when we can prioritize and manage our time, sometimes we do have to be assertive and say no. And the thing is that whenever we say yes to a request or a project, we're saying no to something else in our own life, right? Or something that we need to do that's important. So think about when you're asked to do something, to say no is okay. When you do say no, you want to give an honest explanation, right? I can't do that because I actually have to get something else done, or I'm running out right now and can't manage this. You can clarify your reasoning. I can't do that. I have to say no because I have a case plan that's due by the end of today, and so I've got to do that instead. You can give an alternative, by saying, boy, I'd love to do that. I can't do that today because I have a case plan due by the end of the day, but tomorrow I could do that to help. And then there are times that you do have to do like that assertive refusal piece where people will ask you over and over again or really try to get you to do something for them. It's fine just to stick to that like empathic answer of I hear you, I understand that this is really important to you, and I can't do it right now. But really thinking, if you say yes to something, a question, a request or a project, is that something that you are willing to put at the top of your list and do that above all else? And if it is, then do it. If it's not, say no. You can put it off for a while. That actually is okay to prioritize your own time. This is a list of what distractions and what we call time wasters. Some of them we have control over, some of them we don't. But these are things that definitely get in the way when we're thinking about managing our time and what's important to us. Identify the areas that you can change, right? Telephone interruptions. What can you do to avoid any sort of telephone interruptions? Drop-in visitors, meetings. How important are meetings? We're not going to get into that today, but certainly be thinking through what meetings do you need to go to, what meetings are important and what aren't. Managing crises. Again, crises seem urgent and they're reactive, but how much do we need to manage them? Just a lack of self-discipline can sometimes be a time waster, right? It's just your inability to make yourself sit down and do the work. Lack of having objectives, priorities, or a plan. Certainly, if you don't have a plan for your day and you're just floating through the day, it's easy to waste time and get distracted by other things, right? A cluttered desk, being disorganized certainly can be distracting. Having inadequate, inaccurate, or delayed information. And sometimes we can't help that, right? If we're looking at our collateral information that we're trying to gather from somebody and they're not getting back to us, or we're not getting the information that we need fully, that it may be out of our control. But what can we do to actually take control, right? And try to get that information or do something in the meantime while we're waiting for it. Sometimes we can get stuck in that, I don't have it, so I can't do it, but what else can we do? Our inability to say no, what we just talked about, right, can be a huge distraction or a waste of time for our own stuff. Attempting too much at once. We are not good multitaskers, even when we think we are. It slows down everything else that we're doing. So try not to take on too much at once. Having a lack of or unclear communication certainly can kind of waste our time, in that we may not be clear about what we're supposed to do or what someone else is doing. So be really clear at communication. Indecision and procrastination. We're going to talk about procrastination in a minute because that's a big piece of what happens for a lot of people. And then ineffective delegation, and that really is just our inability to ask people to do something for us, to delegate different tasks to different people. That is a skill. So procrastination, I think we're all probably fairly familiar with, right? It would be, I would be super surprised if anyone said they never procrastinate. It's kind of a human nature thing, right? Oftentimes we procrastinate, and that's okay, because what happens is we build up enough stress and anxiety as we're procrastinating when we know a deadline is coming that we do the job. And it's not always the best way to do it because it does create a lot of stress and anxiety. But the reason why we procrastinate sometimes is just not having a clear deadline. Research will show that having a deadline that's further out, people procrastinate more, or not having a clear deadline, people kind of let things go, right? And don't get the tasks done. Having inadequate resources, whether it's time, money, supplies, give us an excuse not to do what we need to get done. Not knowing where to even start. And sometimes that's being overwhelmed, right? Is not knowing where to begin. And we feel overwhelmed and the project feels so big that we're not even sure how to start it. Just the first step to take. Feeling a lack of passion for the work. And I would say for sure that is, I would watch burnout there, right? If you're really feeling like you don't have the passion, you're procrastinating and you're burnt out, Watch that. And either like fear of failure, sometimes even fear of success, we can procrastinate. 9 ways to overcome it is, and there are other ways as well, but these are just 9 ways that we've come up with. Think of the 80-20 rule. If it's not something that needs to get done, or if it's not something that's going to get you to your results, and you don't really have to do it, delete it, get rid of it, right? Take it off your list, take it off your plate. Delegate, give a job to someone else, right? Again, get it off your list, have someone else do it. Just do it, right? Nike really coined that amazing phrase. And anytime in my life I've ever had that point of having this something to do, if I just go out and do it, it's so much easier than it seems to be when I think about it, right? Everything starts in our brain. And if we don't just do it, sometimes it can just stick in our brain. Ask for advice, right? Ask a colleague, a supervisor, a coach, some expert on what they would do and where they would start. That's a great way to kind of get going. Chop it up. Take a project, if it feels overwhelming or it feels big, and break it down into pieces that you can manage. And then obey the 15-minute rule. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique, which is developed after the Pomodoro tomato kitchen timer. And what was found is that if you actually turn a timer on, and I think the Pomodoro is a 25-minute is really what they say, but you can do 15 minutes. You focus 100% knowing that you have that time and that's your focus, versus if you have a lot of time. And after the timer goes off, you know you have a break. But do chunk things out and do them in small periods of time. Give yourself a clear deadline, right? If you have something that's further off, make little milestones and give yourself those deadlines. And share the deadlines. Tell someone what you're doing. Because we also have a tendency to be more accountable to other people than we sometimes are to ourselves, right? It's easier for us to give a deadline. Oh, I didn't make it. I'll do it again tomorrow. But if I actually told someone, I tend to be more accountable to them. Reward yourself. Give yourself a project, give yourself a time frame, a deadline, and when you do whatever you say you're going to do, give yourself a reward, motivate yourself, and remove distractions, right? The idea here is to gain traction, which is really like the opposite of distraction, and traction keeps us moving. So remove anything that's going to get in our way of doing what we need to do, and just start that. It's all so simple, right? The eat that frog, I don't know if you've heard of that, but there's a saying that kind of came from, like, if you start every day and you know you have to eat a frog and you do it and you get it done with, then you have the satisfaction of knowing like that was the worst thing that you're going to do that day, right? So your biggest task, the thing that you really need to get done, is your frog. Get that done as soon as you can. Just do it, right? And there's also the saying, if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugliest one first. If you have 2 things on your list that are important and you need to get them done, remove the one that's the hardest and that you don't want to do first. We get so tempted to take these easy little projects and get those done, when really we're going to be better off doing the big projects and the ones that we don't want to do first. So jump right in and do it. So those are ideas on prioritizing. So we're now going to look at, like, how can I use my time better? What are some ideas for better use of my time? And planning wisely is really the best way we can manage this. The hallmark of successful time management is being consistently productive each day, right? Having a daily plan and committing to it can help you stay focused on the priorities of each particular day. So setting those little goals, being really clear about what they are and committing to them, putting them in your calendar, chunking them out, is gonna help you stay focused and get things done. One method certainly is the chunk, block, and tackle, right? We've talked about this again a little bit, but if you have a project, you have a case plan coming, you have to write an affidavit, you have something coming up that you have to get done, and it feels like a big project, chunk it out into little pieces that you can do. And then block the time to do those pieces. And you don't have to you chunk things out. It doesn't have to be done all at once. Take a case plan, right? Take the first 2 sections of a case plan and say, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, I'm blocking out from 10 to 11. I'm going to tackle that. And I'm going to get those first 2 pieces done, right? Put things in bite-sized pieces that you know you will do. And commit to putting them in your calendar in a time frame. Ready, fire, aim is, we've all heard of ready, aim, fire, but the idea here is to not get stuck in that analysis paralysis piece of thinking and planning and getting ready. And sometimes when we're aiming, right, we'll aim and we'll aim and we'll aim because we want to get it perfect, but we get stuck there. So don't overplan. Look at what you need to do. What are the basics of what you need to do to be ready? And then do it. Just take action first and then adjust your aim. Again, similar to that 80-20, if you're planning enough, right? Because you know what you need to do, and then you take action, you're gonna be somewhere in the target. It may not be right in the bullseye, but you're gonna be somewhere in the target. And so if you need to adjust what you're doing, do so after, but just fire right off. Declutter your workspace. I know we said this about the procrastination piece, but it makes a difference. Own your workspace and make it somewhere that you can actually focus. We get so distracted by so many things. Our brain works constantly. Whereas if I see something, I see a little note, sticky note that has somebody's name on it, I'm gonna automatically get pulled away and start thinking of something else when I really want to focus on one other thing. So the idea here in this slide is what you want in front of you is like your working file. What do you need immediately to work on? What are the pieces of paper or whatever you need in front of you that you actually need to work on right now? What do you need to have handy as a reference, right? So maybe you're doing a case plan, maybe you have the affidavit, you have some interviews in front of you. For reference, maybe you have an old file, right? That if you need to look something up, you can. And then the archival file is, oh, maybe all those past files, right? Maybe it is a family that has previous files. Have those somewhere, but they don't need to be right in front of you. And only have the essentials for what you're doing at that time, if you can, right in front of you. You want to manage your workload with the acronym called STING, right? It just helps manage your flow. And the STING stands for select one task to do at a time, right? Time yourself on that task. Give yourself, again, like the Pomodoro technique or the 15-minute chunk, give yourself a section of time to actually sit down and do that task. Ignore everything else. Focus fully on that task. You don't need breaks. Don't have any interruptions. Don't look at your phone if you get a text, if you get a call. Turn your phone ringer off. Don't be checking emails, right? But stick to the time that you've given yourself. And then when you get done with that, reward yourself. Give yourself a reward. It's super simple. And again, this takes some time. It takes some planning and some thought. So super quick on email. Email is best handled in batches. If you can, rather than getting distracted by checking email every time you sit down at your computer, or having it on your phone, and every time it goes off, looking at your email, set some times to do it. Do it in the morning, do it at noon, and then do it in the afternoon or right before you leave, right? It's so much more efficient to actually look at them in chunks where you can concentrate and focus on them than this constant barrage of emails and responding right off. It's just not as efficient, and it's not going to be as effective. You can create delivery rules, and this really means if you send an email, put in the subject something that will remind you of what the email is about. And if it's important, make sure to note that, right? Or if it's an urgent email that you're really looking for a response, you can put that in the subject. If it's a joke to a friend, put joke in the subject so that you know when the response comes back that you can hold off and you don't need to look at that right off if you're doing something else. And you can ask people to put in the subject line of an email whatever is going to be helpful for you. You also want to create folders for different topics, because again, there are going to be times that you want to read an email, but you might save it for later, or you look at it quickly and then you know this goes in this folder, right? So I'm organizing my folders of my emails, so I'm not getting caught up thinking about what I just read and am I going to go back and find it and how far down is it going to be by the time I come back. I put it in a folder and my brain can relax. And set rituals. Rituals, I think when we think about them, it's they sound kind of boring. Routines sound like they get us caught in like a funnel, right? Of boy, that's a routine. That's something I have to do. That makes life boring. They actually can increase spontaneity and fun, because what happens when we have rituals is that our brain gets to relax and the times that it can. And we don't have to try so hard. Do this with me just for a minute. I'm checking the time, 1:49. Do this quickly. I know we're not going to stand up, so we'll do something sitting down, but just follow my lead. I'm going to tap with my finger, but tap your forehead, tap your chest, tap your nose, tap your chest, tap your ear, tap your forehead, tap your nose, tap your chest, and keep going. Okay, and then we're going to do something else. So we'll start over here. Follow my lead again. Tap your forehead, tap your nose, tap your chest. Tap your forehead, tap your nose, tap your chest. Tap your forehead, tap your nose, tap your chest. Tap your forehead, tap your nose, tap your chest, and keep going. And notice the difference between those two. And you can put in the chat, or if you even just want to unmute for a second, what was the difference between doing the first one when I said continue to do it on your own, and doing the second one when I said continue on? Does anyone want to share?
I'll share. The one with the ear was sort of out of alignment. Like, this is very linear, and maybe it's because I'm a linear person, I don't know, but this, and oops, get an ear seemed like there's something out of whack there. I don't know. This just felt more comfortable. Sort of, I don't know, weirdly like I was praying also, so that's not my jam either. So.
That's awesome. That actually, I know, right? Maybe that was a little too much like, something we've seen and we know. But right, the first one is, there was no pattern to it, right? And it was out of whack. There's an ear, there's no wherever, it kind of went different places. So what you had to think about when I stopped was where do I go, right? And then the second one is probably much easier, right? It was that linear. I know where I'm going. And that just shows our brains like patterns. And it's so easy for us to pick up on those and to do those. And it makes us more relaxed. It decreases anxiety. So setting rituals and following those, giving your brain, it knows what to expect. It can actually support you having more energy to do the other things that you want in life. Rituals can be, you know, coming right into the office and checking your email right off, and then stopping, right? And then maybe taking time to go talk to people. And then knowing you're going to come back in and put case notes in. But having set rituals relaxes us. It makes it easier for us to do other things in life and achieve our goals that we want. Learn to delegate. Again, we could do a whole micro learning on this. But delegating is an opportunity for growth of another person's skills, right? It helps people grow. We delegate a task, they learn to do that task. It's great to do with reoccurring tasks that are just simple for someone else to do and they can pick up on them. And it's great to also delegate non-critical tasks. We have case aides, CFS staff, you know, for our admin can help us with things, like delegate tasks that we don't need to do. And so that was a lot of running through how to spend time well. I know, let's see, it's 1:54. I'm going to check with my co-host here, Cassie. And I know we want to save time for the eval, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll just have you just think about this. And I apologize, I was going to have you get into your groups again.
Maybe people could put it in the chats.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm doing
that would
this
be
like
great.
it's a secret. I mean, we're on
I know.
video. Guys, don't look. Don't look.
You didn't hear, but my co-host just said, and I love the idea. Think about this and write it down. And actually, writing this down will help. Put it out there. It will help you to follow through with the goal. What is one goal that you're willing to set to manage your time for the rest of this week? You only have 3.5 more days, right? Not even 3.5, 3 more days. What is one thing you're willing to do that will help you manage your time this week? One goal. And also, while you're doing that and thinking about it, I am going to bring up the next slide, which has although they can't do this, Cassie, right? Do we have to put it in the chat?
You can't click it here. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
I'll do that right now. Give me just a second. I'll be right back with that.
Thank you so much to get that one down. But if you could do the eval, that would be wonderful. And again, time management, it's fun. It's work. And once you put the work in, it actually makes your life so much better. It really can create a much easier life, much easier work day for you.
So links in the chat. If you have trouble clicking it, you can copy and paste it. It's also in the invite for this microlearning. And here's the thing. We're getting such good turnout for the microlearnings. We're getting terrible turnout for the evaluations. So take a minute and tell us what you think. It's really helpful for our program. I'll mute now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's these are fun. And if there's anything too that you'd want to do more of for any of these infos, throw it in the eval or in the chat. And I'm excited to see your goals.
Yeah, they look great.
Yeah.
We have one more microlearning. So our training calendar at the partnership runs through the end of June. It follows kind of the academic year. And then we take a little break and the workforce team is going to get together and start planning microlearnings for the coming year. We're going to slow them down to one a month. presuming that we'll be able to be in the same rooms at some point together. But so don't hesitate to give us ideas of things you want to hear more of or things we didn't get to, because we'll be planning the next year's topics. And ideas for podcasts too. Very welcome.
Thank you.